The statistics tell us that 91% of us have our phones with us 24 hours a day. We don't have to move our feet to reach our phones.
Welcome to the Connect Method Parenting Podcast, where correction is out, connection is in, and your kids want to listen to you. I'm Andy Martineau, creator of Connect Method Parenting, here to help you stay calm, confident, and connected no matter what. Joey, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm very excited about the mission that you're on to help families prioritize their time away from their phone. This is something that I would say almost all of my clients and listeners, if they have children that are reaching that age, which gets younger and younger, by the way, of when their friends are getting phones, there's this debate. There's this dilemma of how do I navigate it? When's the right time? How do I put the restrictions on? What's restrictions? All of the things that we're dealing with. Can you explain your journey to get to where you are? We're going to get into everybody, what Joey's mission is. It's really inspiring. I think it's going to give us a lot of things to think about and give us some tools that we can use to help us navigate electronics, screens, all of the things. But tell us a little bit about you and how you landed in the realm of helping families find time away from their screens.
Andy, thank you for having me. I'm very excited for this conversation. I'll take you back to start. I'll take you back 11 years on a very ordinary Saturday afternoon where something really, truly extraordinary happened. So my son Harrison, who is now just like a month away from 16 and itching to drive, he's almost there. But when he was 5 years old, he was playing his very first soccer season. And Harrison's the sweetest kid in the world. And for most people who have kids who played youth sports, it's the sweet kids that don't necessarily succeed all the time. It's the aggressive ones. So Harrison's the sweetest kid in the world. And everybody on the team had scored a goal this season except for Harrison. And so this Saturday afternoon, and I almost remember it, Andy, I swear, I almost remember it like it was like a slow motion, like movie scene where Harrison rears back his leg, he kicks the ball, and it rolls into the back of the net, dramatic music in the background, and he scores his first goal, and everybody goes wild. So the crowd, everybody knew that this was the last kid on the team to score a goal. The crowd goes wild. His coach picks him up, and it was truly this amazing, magical moment. But right in between the ball going in the net and everything going crazy, that little half second, Harrison did something that 5-year-old boys do, is he looked over to the sidelines to lock eyes with me, to lock eyes with Dad, for him to see pride on my face, the smile on my face, to share that really amazing, magical moment. It really was absolutely incredible, except I missed every bit of what I just described. When Harrison looked over at me, he was looking at the top of my head, because I was looking down at my phone. And Andy, I have no idea what I was looking at. It's not like it was this earth-shattering business deal or this like great moment or a tragedy that I had to attend to. No. I was just looking at my phone because I was a little bit bored. And I had a moment there, and this was one of a few moments like this where, and I think a lot of parents have moments like this, whether big or small, where I just said, something's wrong. Like, I have a relationship with this rectangle in my pocket that I call a smartphone. And that's getting in the way of all these relationships that I would claim are the most important things to me, but my actions look different. So it was this little moment, and it does come down to that really important word, which is relationship. I knew that it was this relationship that was subverting all my most important relationships, and something had to change. And I would love to say that was the moment and everything got better then, but it didn't. My now business partner texted me several years later and said, hey, I have this idea that I think we should talk about. And it was all around, hey, we are missing moments with our families. We are not, I hate to even use the word achieving, but achieving presence. If you want to even say achieving presence, it feels a little bit oxymoronic. But we said, hey, I think we should do something. Let's do something for our families. And if we can help our families, I bet you we could help a lot of families. So that set us out on this journey to help us address the relationships we have with our phones.
So beautiful. And that's a relationship most of us want to change too, because so often I have parents feel very helpless, especially as they get to have teenagers. How do I change the relationship? They won't ever put it down.
Yeah.
And I see more and more, they're watching TV and on their phone, and so much is going on. And that relationship is fragile. They feel as with the teen, they don't want to totally destroy it, but they realize there's a problem. So how do we move forward? I think most of us realize we need to improve our relationship with our phones. We want our kids to do better with their devices. How did you go about solving it? Please tell me, because I want to do this
Well,
right away.
I'll actually back up just a little bit with that because I think one thing that we're saying here, and you and I are both saying it as if it's a very accepted term. We're talking about our relationship with our phone, our relationship with our phone. And that's a term that everybody is very familiar with. But we have to pause for a moment and acknowledge that's weird. We just described a relationship with an object. And as adults, we don't
Yeah.
have relationships with objects, right? I see my lawnmower about once a week for 9 months out of the year, right? But it's not as
Mm-hmm.
if when a conversation gets boring, I go sneak in a quick mow, right? It's I don't have it is a tool
Right.
that gets
Right.
things done. And so let's begin by saying it's very odd that we have a
Mm-hmm.
relationship with a phone. But for children, it's not odd to have a relationship with an object. Children have relationships with objects, and those things are called transitional objects. Another term for them are comfort objects. And so a
Right.
comfort object, an example would be like a blankie or a pacifier or a teddy bear. That serves actually a very important role in a child's development. So that transitional
Absolutely.
object is exactly what it means. It transitions a child from this feeling of utter dependence on their parents into, oh, I can do it on my own. So when a parent leaves the room, they'll hold on to their teddy bear because they need to, and that gives them a false sense of security, right? The teddy bear is not
Mm-hmm.
really protecting anything, but it gives them a
Mm-hmm.
feeling of security, a false sense of security in the absence of their real security. So what smartphones have become in our lives is the adult comfort object, is the adult transitional
Mm.
object.
Yeah.
But the problem with that, Andy, is that they're not segueing us up to independence. They're actually devolving us
Mm-hmm.
back into dependence. We're becoming dependent on these
Mm-hmm.
things. And to take it a step further, where a child will hold on to a teddy bear in the absence of relationships, in the absence of their parents, in the absence of their security, we're clinging to these things in the presence of relationships. We're doing this to our kids and to our spouses and to our friends, sitting right there with them. We're clinging to these objects while they are present with us. And so these
Yeah.
devices have devolved us back to this state of childhood. And I think it is important to just say again, it's very unique, it's very odd. It's bringing us back to a childlike dependence on something that's not really progressing us forward. It's leading us
Mm.
instead of to independence, it's pushing us back towards isolation.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Yes, I love that you framed that all up. And to even take it one step further, unlike the teddy bear, these transitional objects that we've created a relationship with have people behind them that are pushing for us to
Mm,
be more dependent. You know what I mean? There's this whole
right.
working where their
Yeah.
job is to get us to pick them up and to never put them
Um,
down. And we have our brain getting dopamine hits. So there's an addictive quality to it that,
yeah.
thank goodness, doesn't appear in blankets and stuffed animals for our children,
Yeah,
but
right.
it's two more things working
Yeah.
in a very odd, I love how you
Yeah.
said that. It's a very strange, unique
Yeah.
situation that we're in that is also never, at least to my knowledge, it's new. It's never been something that as humans we've had
Yeah.
to figure out.
Mm,
We're not getting any wisdom passed down from our parents. This is how I dealt with you when you were on your phone.
yes.
We're
Yeah.
missing that. And so we're the first generation of parents that are having to figure out, how do we deal with a device that is addictive and has
Yeah.
people working nonstop to make it more and more likely to want to pick that up. So
It is a lot, and you're so right. And I think what you just said is so important is that we don't have somebody before us. We don't have somebody that's teaching us the way. And for that reason, for anybody listening today, by the way, this may feel uncomfortable at times, it may feel a little painful, but this message is a message of hope. In my mind, Andy, this is the greatest opportunity that anybody in any relationship has is figuring this piece out. And I think it's a lot more figure outable than we give it credit for. And
yes.
so it's this huge monster, of course, but we have some real agency in this matter. So that's really exciting. And I'll elaborate just a little bit on the relationship, and we can label this a comfort object or a transitional object. I think actually for this, comfort object is probably the best one because we're not transitioning
Mm-hmm.
towards something greater. So you think through how we formed a relationship with devices. And as we look at it, we think about the hallmarks of any relationship. There are a bunch of characteristics, but there are three kind of primary characteristics of any relationship. And those three are you have varying levels of proximity, interaction, and dependence in any human relationship. And this is the same way we formed a relationship with our devices. So, beginning with proximity, Our phones are with us all the time. That's the core. That's the domino, the first domino with it. They are with us all the time, and that has defined our relationship with us. The statistics tell us that 91% of us have our phones with us 24 hours a day. We don't have to move our feet to reach our phones, 91% of us. And so because we have proximity with our phones, we will interact with it. We will interact with them virtually constantly. So
Mm-hmm.
proximity, then interaction. So this interaction, we are using our phones all the time. And it's not as if conventional wisdom would say, oh, that's because you're getting a ding, you're getting a text message ding, or you're getting a notification from ESPN or the Weather Channel. It's really not. Those account for some. So the stats tell us that 11% of our cell phone usage is externally sparked. So, in other words, we are initiating interaction with our phones 89% of the time, just ourselves. I'll be in a conversation, I'll think
Crazy.
of something, I'll look it up, right? And so that
Mm-hmm.
interaction, and when we're around something, we interact with it more, which leads us to be more dependent on it. So again, just like a human relationship. And when you're dependent on it, and by the way, this is where it gets a little bit murky with our phones because we need our phones. Our phones are really helpful. When kids are at school, it's helpful to have your phone nearby in case the nurse calls. And they also do really good things. My grandfather passed away several years ago, and from a hospital bed in Phoenix to my home in Georgia at that time, I was able to FaceTime with them and talk with him, him tell me that he loved me and him tell me that he was proud of me. And it gets me emotional thinking of, but that was enabled by technology to look in his face as we did that. So these things are great, but we grow these dependencies on them, and that morphs into a false dependency on our phone where we
Mm-hmm.
begin to rationalize having them with us all the time. So an example of a false dependency would be when someone says, and all the science says, you shouldn't sleep with your phone in your room. Bad idea. That's not
Mm-hmm.
me making that up. There's study after study
Yeah.
saying that it disrupts your sleep.
Right.
It's no good for you. However, we don't do that. And the main reason when you talk to people, why don't you do that? I use my phone for my alarm. Okay. Is that a real dependency or is that a false dependency? Because we know they can make alarm clocks. They do make alarm clocks, and you can use something else to wake you up. But instead, we grow this
Mm-hmm.
false dependency. And they're with us all the time. We interact with them more. We become dependent on them, which forces us to do what? Be with them all the time. So it
Mm-hmm.
creates this kind of invirtuous loop of proximity, interaction, dependence, leading back to more proximity, more interaction, more dependence, and on. Versus if we can disrupt one of those things, even one of them, I think proximity, we believe, is the very first start. So if you can get away from your phone for just a second, you use it a little bit less, you become a little bit less dependent on it, which means you don't need to be around it as much anymore. So that
Mm-hmm.
continues on and on. And by the way, there are a lot of things wrong with social media and bullying and body shaming, comparison, and all that stuff. But for our purposes, what we talk about, those are all, I believe, things that are very important for us to focus on. But we say, let's go down to this very core relationship that we have with it. And let's make an adjustment there and then see the ripple effects on everything else when we solve that core relationship.
So good. So that was the first step that it sounds like you guys
Yeah.
started to take, was how do we start separating ourselves
Yeah.
from the phone?
Yeah.
Because we're taking it everywhere. It's
Yes.
going to the bathroom with people. It's
Right.
going on car ride. It's going everywhere. Going to bed, even in the shower. Some people
Yeah.
you just can't separate themselves. So taking a break so that you're interrupting that cycle is one
Yeah.
of the most important things. So
Yeah.
tell me more about that, because I think
Yeah.
that parents would be all on board with their teens or tweens, whatever age they've given them a phone, to take a break. That can be a tricky thing for some parents. I want you to address this because
Yeah.
I have lots of opinions about this, but this is where they'll present to me. They'll be like, but how? How do I get them to step away from the phone? Because
Yeah.
it's already started.
Yeah, and by the way, I recognize whenever I say, "Oh, we should spend less time around our phones," there is no greater, yeah, duh, obviously. So I know what I'm saying sounds oversimplistic, but it really is the solution.
Mm-hmm.
This core, and if we look at it on that basis of you need physical distance from your phone, and this is where our message gets a little bit unpopular, Andy. There are 4 ways you can change your relationship with your phone, so I'll focus on the first one right now. And by the way, we should all recognize that when you change your relationship with your phone, you change your relationship with everyone around you. We know this relationship with this device is impacting every relationship. I think it begins with everybody recognizing how critically important this is. And I think that's one of the problems as a society, as we've been talking about this, is we haven't taken it seriously enough. This is the biggest potential torpedo in our relationships. This little thing which is crazy to say. You think about my parents when I was 5 years old in 1985, like they still had to be good parents. They didn't have cell phones. The hard work begins even after you put down your phone, but it can't ever begin when you have your phone with you. So this is very difficult. And the problem, the very first way we had, and again, the 4 ways to change your relationship with your phone, they're 4 S's. The first one, if you read Simon Sinek a few years ago, he wrote a book called Start With Why. And we believe the only way to change your relationship with your phone is to start with I, that you have to start with yourself. And we are saying, and this is where people are going to argue with me, the kids are not the problem. These kids have grown up with such a deep need and crying and craving for connection. That's all they want, is to connect. Every human, that's all we want, to connect. And so they are dying for us to connect with them from a very young age. Now, I understand, and by the way, this message, when your kids are young, if you can get this right, it's better, right? When they're young, the stakes are high, but the pain is low. As they get older, the stakes are still high, but the pain is also high. So for somebody listening as a teenager who's having a problem here, I do want you to understand it's never too late. It's never too late to begin to embed these things, but those goals become smaller. You have to start with smaller steps from a very young age. But we have to begin with ourselves, and we have to look at our relationships with our phones. So the model, we call the model up to this point, we say these are the 3 M's, that the model that we have and how we handle phones with kids is the first M is that we as parents model a bad relationship with our phones. We have it at the dinner table when our kids are talking to us. We look at it when they're at soccer, when they're playing a soccer game, such as me, I'm looking at my phone instead of watching them play. We model this bad relationship with our phones. One day we give our kids a phone and they mimic what we've modeled to them. So that's the second one. We model it, they mimic it. And then we do something absolutely crazy at the end, Andy. And it's crazy that we do this, is that we get mad at our kids for mimicking what we've modeled to them. And so here we are, all of a sudden mad at our kids, and all they're doing is mimicking what we modeled. What if instead, knowing that no matter the relationship we model, our kids will mimic that, what if we modeled a good relationship with our phones from when they were very young? And then they'll mimic that. Then we can make memories and make magic, or whatever third cool M you can think of. We can begin this great cycle, but it all begins with us. And we have to stop saying that the kids are the problem. We can own our portion of this. And when I say that, own our opportunity, own the fact that we have so much control in this. We have so much power in this. And I don't care if you have a 17-year-old, you can begin to model this. You can begin to model. So to answer your question, what do we do about the kids? What you can do about the kids, you can start with I. You can start with yourself.
If you're new to Connect Method Parenting, I have a great way for you to get started. I created a free course that covers some of the biggest challenges parents are facing and how Connect Method Parenting solves them. In an hour, we're going to talk about why parenting is so hard, how to get your kids to want to listen to you, how to stop yelling and losing your cool, and become that calm, confident, connected parent for good. It's the fastest way to get started using connection as your go-to tool for influencing and impacting your kids. Go to cmp.works/course to get instant access today. Yeah, absolutely. That's the Connect Method Parenting framework I teach too. It really starts with how the parent's showing up, because if you look at how the brain works, it's those mirror neurons that are sending out messages that are part of what you're talking about, this modeling and mirroring. And then they pick up and they reflect us. They completely mirror. So it's exactly what you're saying across the board. And I have to say, it's something we have control over, which is really empowering. I was sharing before we should hit record that I had a conversation with a client recently. She just read a book called Stolen Focus. It goes into a lot of stuff and it's a lot of data and really well researched, but it left a feeling of, oh my gosh, there's so much that I need to do, and really that I don't have any impact or influence over. And it's good to have awareness. All of that is good. But I love that you're coming back and saying, let's just zero in on the one thing that you do have impact and influence. Let's make it as simple as possible to get started. And if you can start mirroring something different, the chain reaction of that is powerful for your relationships. That influences your children's mental health. That influences their ability to emotionally be resilient, like so many things, emotional resilience, their relationship with just humans, all of the things. So I love that you're bringing it back to something that, one, we have control over. It's completely doable and we can take action on.
Yeah,
today.
that's right. And one thing I'll add to that, a lot of parents, if you've heard this line, and again, there's so much, Andy, there's so much shame that comes along with this
Hmm.
topic. I hope people listening can release yourself from the shame. And again,
Yeah,
understand this is a new
please.
problem. You were never taught. Like, you have such a cool
Hmm.
opportunity, and just look at it as upside. And I think one of the biggest sources of shame or feeling guilt and being down on yourself is when we'll hear lines, and so many parents have told us they hear this line from their kids, like, mommy, put down your phone. Daddy, put down your phone. From a very young age,
Hmm.
there was
Hmm.
someone told us the other day, their 13-month-old, they were trying to do something with their 13-month, grabbed the phone, then threw it. Like 13 months
Hmm.
old,
Hmm.
because they have such a deep need to connect. And so if you've ever
Hmm.
heard that, the natural tendency is, oh crap, I blew it. Oh man, I'm such a crappy parent. But what if instead we viewed that line, mommy, put down your phone, daddy, put down your phone? What if we viewed that as a positive thing? What if we celebrated it?
Hmm.
Because to me, it means two things. The first thing that it means is that your kid likes you. And that's a great thing. That's
Hmm.
not always assumed that your kid is always going to like you. So if they're saying to you, put down your phone, what they're saying is, hey, I like you. I don't want to spend time with you. What a cool thing that is. The second thing that says is your child is saying, hey, I deserve to be looked at. I have
Hmm.
value, that I'm so awesome
Hmm.
that you should look at everything I do because I'm so great. That's what your kid is saying. And who
Hmm.
doesn't want their
Hmm.
kid to have a foundational sense of value? Now, where we have to start
Right.
getting a little bit worried is where our kids stop saying that. When our kids stop saying
Hmm.
that, because all of a sudden they're becoming conditioned. You talk about neural pathways and how the brain forms. All of a sudden, our kids are beginning to believe maybe I'm not worth looking at. So we have this whole condition. I think in our relationships, by the way, this doesn't just go for kids, this goes for marriages too. I believe
Hmm.
that our intimacy in relationships, intimacy, just not using that term in a sexual way, but using that term in just
Yeah.
like a closeness way, I believe that our intimacy is being eroded. And I think you can attribute it to a death by a thousand glances. A glance at your
Hmm.
phone, it's not death by a thousand cuts, it's death by a thousand glances. And again, I'm going to tie this back to the hope that this is where we do have the control. This is where we do have the agency. This is the most hopeful opportunity. Not only that, it's the most accessible opportunity that we have in relationships. Everybody's looking in life for a lever. A lever is something that requires minimum input, but that gives you maximum output, right? This is
Hmm.
it. Like, this literally is it. And it sounds so dumb that putting down your phone will have that impact, but it absolutely does as you consistently do that over time. The earlier you start, the better. The best time to start is early. The second best time to start is now, right? And so we can
Right.
all do this no matter what stage you're at.
So good. And I love that it's just so simple. So, how do we do that? What's the first step? I know you guys, and I
Yeah,
love you to explain what you
sure.
guys have created because I think it's really powerful. What's the first step if I want to put the phone down?
Yeah, I'd love to talk through those four things, and then I'd be happy to talk about
Yes,
how
do.
we're
Yeah, circle
implementing
back to
this.
those for
So
sure.
the first
Yeah.
one, starting with I. The second one is we want you to go streaking, and I'm not talking about Will Ferrell running from the quad to the gymnasium and old school. Going streaking, setting time
Mm.
every day, building up a streak of spending some
Hmm.
amount of time physically distant from your phone. And I say some amount of time because it's really important, because everybody's in a different continuum. So if you came to me and said, hey, you should start bench pressing, then I would say, how much? And the answer would be, depends on how strong you are. Not
Hmm.
everybody starts with the same amount of weight on the barbell. So you begin with
Hmm.
wherever you are. So if someone is within the 91%, again, 91% of us spend no time physically distant from our phones. So you join the 9% club by spending any amount of time. So I advise someone starts with 5 minutes a day, be physically distant from
Hmm.
your phone, and then build up that muscle. All this is a muscle. Now, the key is every day. You have to start a streak. It has to be every day. So 5 minutes, and then build up that muscle until you get to maybe 23 minutes a day. The reason I use 23 minutes is studies show, and this is from Gloria Mark at UC Irvine. She says that it takes 23 minutes and 15 seconds to refocus after you've been distracted. Let that about 23-minute mark be your next objective. Then go to an hour a day physically distant from your phone. And I'll
Hmm.
explain how RO works, but on my RO app, I know my average right now is I spend about 3 hours and 15 minutes physically distant from my phone every day. And some of that's family time, some of that is my morning devotion, some of that is working, some of that's on going on a walk with my wife, whatever that is. So I spend about that month. But begin with 5 minutes. So one, start with
Hmm.
I. Two, go streaking.
Hmm.
Sometime physically distant from your phone every day. The third one is within your home. I want you to establish sacred times and sacred places of phone-free
Hmm.
zones. So a sacred thing, the term sacred, anything on earth that is a sacred object is an ordinary object that we have said is sacred. So we're the ones that have the power to determine that something is sacred. So we need to establish those and begin small. So a sacred time could be the 30 minutes after you wake up in the morning, no phone. It could be the 30 minutes before you go to sleep, that's no phone. So it could be that amount of time. What are those times throughout the day you could establish a sacred time? So a sacred place could be the dinner table is a sacred place, or your child's bedroom is a sacred place. So your child knows you never bring your phone into their room. It could live right outside their door, whatever it is, but when you go in there, but they know this is phone free zone. Or it could even be, and this is not a demonization of screens in any way, this could be the living room couch, right? To watch a family movie without a second screen, to share that single experience together instead of four people
Mm-hmm.
having four different experiences, four people having one experience together. Establish sacred times and sacred places in your home that are phone free zones. And then the fourth one, and this is my absolute favorite one because it's such a hopeful opportunity in here, is I want you to search for opportunities for connection. I want you to search for opportunities. And so when you
Mm-hmm.
do that, so the term RO, our business is called RO. The term RO means to notice. So this is going to require some work on your behalf to search for those opportunities to, like, when you're to notice what's happening. So if my daughter, maybe she slumps her shoulders when she walks in the house one day, it may seem a little imperceptible, but if you're noticing, if you're looking, you see something's maybe wrong with Gianna, who's my 14-year-old, or my son Harrison. I could say, hey, how was tennis today? And he could say, it wasn't great. Okay, hold on. That's a moment of possible connection. Or my wife could say, oh, I got to tell you what happened today. That's a moment. And then this to me is just such a beautiful idea. Then you can say the six most powerful words in a relationship in
Mm-hmm.
2024. And those words are, let me put down my phone. And I know that's so basic, but when you say that and then you go do it, my wife says,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I got to tell you about today. All I say is, oh, let me put down my phone. Let me put it on my phone real quick and just
Yep.
say that and then go physically remove it from the moment. And so what
Right.
that's telling my wife in that moment, it's telling her, Kristen, there are 8 billion people who can theoretically reach me on my phone, and you are more important than every single one of them right now. So just
Mm-hmm.
imagine for a moment what that does in a relationship. Imagine what that does for intimacy. Imagine what that could do for my daughter, my 14-year-old daughter. It's freaking hard to be a teenage girl right now, right? Just
Mm-hmm.
imagine what that does for her self-confidence to know that daddy loves me,
Mm-hmm.
that dad is with me whenever I need. Because what can happen, the alternative is we can be in a conversation and it takes one glance to kill the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And not just that moment. That kills that moment, but then it kills my daughter's willingness to be open and vulnerable with me later. In the next situation, that protective mechanism inside of her is going to say, the last time I opened up with the dad, I got shot down.
Yeah.
So there's the good and the bad there. But to me, this is so much fun to be just an investigator, to search for those cues. And by the way, that works with yourself too. That works with yourself when you just, something feels off.
Yeah.
And we say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I got to go explore that for a second. I got to figure out what's going on with me. I'm going to go put down my phone and just be here in this uncomfortable, boring moment of self-discovery and reflection and figuring out what's wrong. Those are the four ways. Those are the four
Hmm.
ways. And
Love
we
it.
have a business and a platform that helps you do this effectively, but this is accessible to everybody listening today. And I'll go over them again. One, start with I. Begin with yourself. Don't point the
Mm-hmm.
finger at anybody but yourself. Look inside of yourself. Second, go streaking. Spend time physically distant from your phone every day. Three, establish sacred times and sacred places in your home with no phones. And then fourth, search for cues for connection. Search for moments for connection with the people around you.
So good. I'm glad that we went through every single one. We could spend a podcast episode on each one of those, but they're so
Yeah,
good. And I love how simple it is, but how powerful it is. The six
it is
most
simple.
powerful words. Let me
Mm,
put down my phone. There's so much implied in that our
yeah.
kids know. That's a
Mm,
pretty important distinction in the
yeah.
moment. So I'm so glad you shared that. Those
Yeah.
are so powerful. And like you said, we can all just do that. We don't need any extra help. So you can
Nope.
take that and go run with it and
Yeah.
start executing on all four of those things and start changing your relationship
Yeah.
with your phone, which will change your relationship with your children
Yeah.
inevitably. It's
Absolutely.
definitely correlative.
Mm,
But for a lot of parents, I think we'll address this too, is there's an important factor of getting the kids to buy into this.
mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you have any wisdom that would be helpful. Obviously, we start with us, and maybe that's just where
Yeah.
we start, and then it trickles out. A
Mm,
lot of times that's what's happened. But if you have any other encouragement for parents who are like, this is awesome, and I'm going to totally start with this,
yeah.
Does this really ever move into where my kids will intentionally choose to put that phone
Yeah.
away? Because there's fears like I'm going to miss out on what my friends are doing, or
Mm,
I'm just used to scrolling
yeah.
to take away what I think anxiety,
Yeah.
maybe it's a little discomfort or whatever. Talk about that a little
Yeah.
bit because that's an important thing.
Yeah. There are two camps. One of them is in just the dividing line, kid with a phone and kid without a phone. So the easy one is, well, let's
Mm-hmm.
start with the kid without the phone. If you can normalize
Mm,
that in your home from a very young age, then it's shockingly easy. When
yeah,
your kid
I
gets a phone,
agree.
they just know, okay, this is what relationships look like. That's easy. But you have to have the discipline of yourself, the foresight to do that. If there are kids who do have phones,
Mm,
and parents may argue this, I just want to promise you, your kids want to connect with you.
mm,
You may not believe it. I don't think we're giving our kids enough credit. We're just saying, oh, they're always on their phone or they're always. I just think that our kids really like us. I do believe
mm-hmm.
that. And I know there are some exceptions to the rule. So I want you to begin with this baseline belief and confidence in yourself that
I
your kids
agree.
do want to connect with you. So
Mm-hmm.
they do want to
Yeah.
connect with you. And it does have to begin super, super small. If you're one of those families where your kid has established this relationship where they are always scrolling, they're always in the room, that it's tough. Yes, absolutely. So that's where you begin small with maybe a little sacred time. Hey, let's do a phone free dinner tonight and get them
Mm,
in the routine of something really small. Are they going to
mm-hmm.
push back? Yes. Are you the parent? Yes. So you do have I hereby bestow the authority on you to say that.
You have
So
permission to do that.
yeah,
Yeah,
you have
absolutely.
absolute permission to do that, and you may be shocked that they're going to like it. Let's take dinner for an example. Just start with high lows for the day. So we do a high low buffalo every night. So the
Mm-hmm.
high, here's my high of the day, here's my low. My buffalo is
Yeah,
something weird that happened today, something crazy that happened.
that's so funny.
That
Mm-hmm.
very basic question, or go get a thing like any of those question cards, or there's one like the
Yeah.
hypotheticals that ask these ridiculous questions. Because one of the questions, Andy, that people always say is, what do I do after I put down my phone? We're so accustomed to having our phones with us,
Right.
we don't know what to do without them. So let it begin with some guided cards. So I'm giving
Mm-hmm.
an answer that I know doesn't feel satisfactory. I understand that. And if you want this problem to clear up by this Thursday, I don't have an answer for
Nope.
you. I
Yeah.
don't. If you want this problem to get better in a Thursday 2 years from now, I got a pretty good answer for you. And
Mm-hmm.
it's small daily deposits. You
Right.
can't go run 24 hours in a day. You don't get the same benefits as running 1 hour for 24 days or
Right.
half an hour for 48 days. It requires a small daily deposit, and it's going to be frustrating and it's going to suck, and you're probably not going to see a lot of benefit from it in the short term, but that is the way.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for a couple of those ideas. Starting just with the phone free dinner with some
Yeah.
conversation cards, music playing, something that
Yeah.
gets us all back into the habit because we probably have most likely maybe been distracted or unaccustomed to
Yeah.
knowing how to engage without our phone either. So I love that. It's so good. And this is
Yeah.
about a long term investment. So if you knew that if you just did these four things, eventually you're going to all feel so much better around the
Yeah.
phones and the relationships are better. Who cares how long it
That's
takes to
right.
get that result? Even if I knew it's going to take a year, it doesn't matter because if that's as long as it's going to take, it's going to take. I don't care because
Yeah.
I want the result.
And
Anything
and
long term, it takes time.
that's
Nature
right.
shows us that. Plants
Yeah.
grow, seasons happen on their own. We can't speed any of that up.
That's so
So
right.
this is obviously
It
how the world works.
By the way, again, this doesn't just work for parent-child relationship; it's in marriages as well. And in both cases,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be greeted with skepticism. You also have to know
Mm-hmm.
that. So the
Right.
actual advice I would give to anybody, back to start with, I would begin before you mandate a family phone-free dinner. I would go put your
Mm-hmm.
phone in a drawer right before dinner for 30 days or 60 days and just do it, and don't mention it about yourself. Don't tell anybody you're doing it. Just do it, and don't criticize when somebody else is on their phone. Just do it
Absolutely.
yourself. Just begin to change the tone and culture. We are all, as
Mm-hmm.
parents, let's be thermostats, not thermometers. Let's be the ones that
Right.
change the temperature ourselves. And so when you do that, will begin to normalize it, and then it makes the next one. Oh, I got an idea tonight. Hey, let's do a phone free dinner. Hey, I got an idea. Let's all
Yeah.
put our business is a place for your phones, but or you say, hey, I want to watch a movie. Or here's an even cooler idea. What if you found something your kid was interested in, and you just engage with
Absolutely.
them in that instead of you mandating your crappy movie? Why don't you find a movie that they like that you may not like? So let's come into
Absolutely.
their. I will tell you, I've listened to more Taylor Swift over the last
Mm.
2 years because my daughter loves her. And
Yep.
it's irrelevant. And actually, I like some of her stuff. Don't tell anybody, please. And now it's our thing. And what a cool
Absolutely.
thing we can do. So go into their world first. Don't just mandate your own little crappy idea and then tell everybody to put it up their
Yeah.
phones. That's a recipe for disaster.
Absolutely. I love the idea of having a 30-day fast from phone
Yeah.
dinners for yourself first, because then you experience it yourself. You're not coming in with this, I got to fix the kids because something's broken with them and they've got to
Right.
put their phones, like you're coming in from, this felt so amazing to not have my phone at dinner. I want everyone to experience this.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's a much better
Yeah.
emotion to fuel an invitation to our children to put their
Mm,
phones down too. And you can speak from personal experience. I have a belief this works. Hey guys, nothing's wrong with any of us. We just live in this world and this is what we're dealing with. And let's try
yeah.
something different. It's really worked well for me. I love, love,
Yeah.
love that, because
Mm,
when we can put the focus on, hey, let me take ownership for my relationship with my phone first, and then let
yeah.
me spread that, is so good.
Yeah.
You guys have created something that helps there be a place to put that phone. And we've
Yeah.
used drawers. We used to have our charging
Yeah.
station on our kitchen counter, and that's where the phones had to go, and they had actually had to stand there and text their friends like that. We've had that parameter. Lots of different solutions to try to create some type of balance in our
Mm,
lives so that they don't take over. But as I was looking at what you guys have done, I'm curious, I'm inspired, I'm interested, because I also love that it's tracking how much time
yeah.
you're away from it, which I think is pretty cool. So tell us more
Yeah.
about that.
You can tell I'm always hesitant to. One thing, this interview is not as a product pitch. I think the
No,
life
but
of
I want people to
RO.
know about
Yeah,
it.
I
Yeah, I
exactly.
do want
I
people
know.
to
So
know
you
about
see,
it.
so forgive my hesitancy to answer the question, just because I want people to understand. RO is for the person who said I've tried
Mm-hmm.
and I need some help. And it's the same
Right,
reason. It's the same reason we all know that you can burn calories and build muscle for free. You can do that all on your own.
right.
But a lot of us belong to gyms because gyms remove the friction of doing something difficult. So what we built was around this premise that we need a designated place for our phones. We need a place for our phones. And at the same time, we all have drawers, we all have shoe boxes, we all have the opportunity to do that now. So it was more than just this needing a place for your phone. We need a system
Mm-hmm.
that helps us get to the
Mm-hmm.
point of putting our phones down. In other words, we need to gamify the experience of putting down our phones. So we have built a beautiful high-tech box. It is wife designed, it's wife approved.
We can have an ugly box on
Absolutely.
our counter. That's not okay.
That so you preempted, you answered it exactly. My wife would let a shoebox sit on the counter for about nine
Nope.
seconds before she
Yeah.
removes it. So it has to be a
Yeah.
beautiful thing that lives in your home. And it's really important from our perspective that this thing needs to have a single purpose, that it holds your
Mm-hmm.
phones. And when it has a single purpose, that means it's more than that. It actually represents something greater. It represents your aspirations. It represents your identity. So in my home,
Mm-hmm.
the RO box says the Odom family is present. The Odom family, we
Mm.
are engaged with each other. And when you identify yourself as something, you become more like the person you identify yourself as. So if I say I'm a present father, guess what? I'm going to do all the things a present father does. So it becomes self fulfilling. But that place is not enough. We need, like I said, to gamify the experience. So when you put your phone in the RO box, it automatically connects to the RO app, which begins to quantify the amount of time that you're away from your phone. And in
Mm-hmm.
doing that, you're able to gamify the experience. So the RO app is a super engaging way for you to see, here's how much time I've spent away from my phone. Oh, by the way, you can tag your sessions where you can say, and here's what I was doing. So I
Oh,
can
that's
look
cool.
back and say, I know exactly how much family time I've had phone free this year. And that is a
Mm.
great feeling. And it's all based around the habit loop. So the crescendo
Mm-hmm.
of the habit loop is the reward. And so when you look in the
Mm-hmm.
RO app and say, oh, look at all this stuff I've done, everybody says the same thing. They feel proud of themselves. And that reward, that reward of pride, what does that do? That gets you to do it again. You can't wait to do it again because you're replacing the dopamine hits of scrolls into
Mm-hmm.
dopamine hits of presence and being with the people around you that you love.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we built, is this app, this platform, this system that gamifies that experience of being away from your phone by having a place, a physical design place. And it's very similar to Peloton, for example. Peloton built, and it's hilarious, Peloton has built a massive business, $1 billion business out of something that existed already, which was an exercise bike. They
Right.
just removed the friction of getting on the bike. And that's the exact same thing here. We're just removing the
Mm-hmm.
friction of putting your phone down. And I'll say it again, this is for the person who says, yeah, I've tried this, but nothing's stuck. Yeah, I'm really struggling here. I can promise you, and this is something that I don't say lightly in any way. This is the most effective form. This is the most effective method of changing your relationship with your phone. So if you've said I've struggled with this, if you join RO, if you order RO, this will absolutely change your life if you use it as we prescribe it.
I love that. That is a bold promise. That is a
Yeah,
pretty
I
promise.
you know what? Yeah, I can make that promise. is because of the guy that I described to you at the beginning of this call, which was me missing Harrison's soccer goal. That was me. I feel the emotions well up saying it because this has become the thing for me because I knew how bad I was
Yeah.
at it. And the fact that I look 180 degrees different from it is proof that this works. And the fact that we have thousands and thousands of people out there who are telling us the same story. This has changed my family. This has changed my life. My 2-year-old and 4-year-old have said, I love it when you put your phone in the box thingy. We hear that all the time, which we just love. And so I can
Yeah.
say with absolute confidence, my daughter Gianna,
Mm-hmm.
when she was 9 years old, we watched a movie together. And this was right when I was starting the journey of RO and putting my phone away. And so at the end of the movie, she turned to me and very plainly said, not judgmentally, not even congratulatory, she said, Daddy, did you know that's the first time we've watched a movie and you haven't had your phone?
Mm.
And in one way, it was a gut punch. And I thought, have I been
Yeah.
this bad for 9 years? But in another way, I thought, that's awesome. That's great. She noticed because our kids do
Yeah.
notice everything we do. And I told her
Right.
that the fun part of this story, I told her about a month ago. I told her, hey, I told that story about you saying that after the movie. And she laughed and she goes, Dad, she goes, it would be so weird now if you had your phone during a movie. So in 5
Yeah.
years, her normal has changed. She knows when it's Harry Potter time or whatever movie it is, she knows that we are together sharing that experience. And so for
Mm-hmm.
anybody who feels hopeless here, I can make that promise because I know that it's changed my life and I know that it's changed other people's lives. And I know that, like I said, is accessible, whether you join RO or not, I don't care, but that is accessible to everybody out there.
I love that in 5 years it's changed her normal, but even after one time, she noticed a
That's right.
difference. So that's
Yes.
encouraging. It may not have been
Yeah.
normal yet, but it doesn't take as much as we think it will take to start shifting things and for them to notice, oh, mom's way more present or dad's really present here.
You're so right. We make a promise that also that if you do this consistently, we promise that somebody in your life will notice and thank you. And it may be yourself
Yeah.
thanking you, maybe you thanking yourself, but someone's
Seriously.
going to notice because it will look that much different.
I've talked to so many moms who I can tell they feel a sense of out of controlness around their phone. They know they have a slight problem putting it down. So being able to take some of these steps and feel empowered to, this is not just going to change my kids' lives. It's going to change my life.
That's
and it's
right.
going to change how I interact with the world, including my kids.
Yeah.
And I talk to parents all the time just about the importance of seeing and hearing. Our kids want to be seen and heard. Humans want to be seen and heard. And even just holding the phone, I've heard, will make someone skeptical. We're not looking at it or anything. We're just even holding it in our, visual field.
Yeah.
They discount our ability to be present with them.
Yeah.
So I love the whole 4 steps. It seems very simple, doable, and a great way to begin to change the relationship we have with our phones, which I love that you're not saying they're evil, they're bad. They're very helpful tools. We need them.
Yeah.
They're not going away. It's about learning how to coexist with them because they're here to stay. And we want to use them in a powerful way because I'm super glad, like you said, with your grandpa. I have 2 boys living in Chile right now. Every week, at least, we FaceTime and we talk and I get to talk with them and see their faces. And I get that experience. I wouldn't have that without technology. So 100%, I love it. And I don't want it to rule my life. So I love that you've laid out a path for it to enhance our life and not to rule our life, where we feel in control, not the device. I love the product that you've created. I'm assuming the website's just ro.com, right? I pulled it up, but I can't remember exactly. ARO.
It's actually goro.com. So we want that to be a verb.
Go RO. Okay.
We want you to go RO, GOARO.
Oh, I love that. Love it. They can go check it out and learn all about it. Thank you so much for sharing just your passion for empowering all of us to take a step towards really owning our relationship with our devices so that we can live a life where at the end of it, where we can really respect how we lived and we can really look back with gratitude for the things we chose to do with it. We don't want to have the regret. And I love that this helps that. So thank you so much for coming on, Joey, and sharing. It was so good. This is such an important topic and needs to be talked about a lot. So I appreciate your work.
Thank you, Andy. I appreciate it.
If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, come check out League, my Connect Method parenting coaching program, where we take this material and we apply it using my proven formula. Head over to cmp.works/join.